Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. Do you feel stressed? Are you feeling like your job is controlling you and you don't have anything else to be able to do, and you don't feel like you've got the balance in your life that you really would like to have? Your relationships are suffering. Going to work starts at sometime in the afternoon on Sunday when you have to work on Monday. And so Sunday night becomes a lousy day for you and all of that. Well, we've got somebody here today who's going to help you figure all that out, because there is an answer. It just takes a little while to figure it out. And a lot of times you need help with somebody who has been down that road and knows what they're doing. And so we're going to talk to him in just a moment. But first, I have to introduce my friend and colleague, Brachelle. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing really good. Do you have a notepad and paper? No, wait a minute.
Yes, of
You have a
course. Always.
notepad and a pencil. Because if
Yes,
you have a
yes.
notepad and paper, you don't have anything to write with.
I didn't even catch on, so I think you're always one step ahead of me. But yes, I always am taking notes.
Oh, very good. And I want to introduce our guest because we've got a lot to talk about. And so I'm going to welcome Jay Abbasi, and he is with us. And he is the conscious professional. If you go to his website, which, by the way, go to his website, which is jayabbasi.me. And which is really, so it's all about him. And so you can go there. He's got a podcast. He's got lots of reviews. He helps people. Well, I guess I should ask him what he does, because he knows better than I do. So Jay, you tell us your story.
Absolutely, Kevin. So the .me is because .com was taken, and I didn't want to have to fight the battle for
There's
the
another
.com.
Jay Abbasi out there.
You believe it? And I said,
No.
well, what do I do now? And I had a choice between .me or .co. I went with .me. Anyway, so my background, many years ago, you were just describing in the intro, I felt like, oh my God, I felt all of those things. Over 10 years ago, I was very stressed, very anxious, not really living my best life. It was the period of my life where I would say I was on autopilot, just coasting, but not making an impact, unhappy. Everything was falling apart. My marriage was falling apart. Everything was falling apart. What created a shift in me was when my father passed away very suddenly, very unexpectedly. When he passed away, it forced me to ask some of those deeper questions about my life. What am I doing? Where am I going? And so I started seeking and finding different methodologies to be able to really understand how to live a purposeful, meaningful life. And it led me down a completely different path. I left a job I was at, not happy and unfulfilled, to starting a job at Tesla, finding a lot of success there. Within a few years, I was promoted 6 times. I was running a national training program there, doing work I loved, speaking in front of groups, training people. And then when I left Tesla, it led to a natural progression of just coaching and speaking now on the topics of resilience and how do you optimize performance and be the best version of you without burning out.
That is maybe one of the biggest challenges that we face, because a lot of employers, they want you to be available for them if you're on salary 50 or 60 hours a week consistently, and then everything else in your life tends to suffer and stuff. So you ran into that. Now, you've coached a bunch of people. Is it true? I think in my world it is, where at one point in time everybody says, why am I really here? And this can't be all there is, because if this is all there is, it really sucks to be me. Um, so is that a common thing that happens to a lot of people?
Yeah, it's the word that comes up all the time is people feel stuck. That's one of the most common words I hear. I'm stuck. I feel stuck. And the reason we get stuck is because we are disconnected. So when we are disconnected from our purpose, disconnected from something greater than ourselves, then we start to have that inner dialogue of what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? So the work is to be able to reestablish that connection to something bigger than ourselves.
That is a major, I want to bring Michelle in here because she is going down that road right now and is trying to figure that part out. Um, who is she? What's she going to do? She's on the other side of 30. And so she's trying to figure out what she's going to do with herself and stuff. Do you have, for a younger person, because there are lots of younger people, I know a good friend of mine, she's about ready to graduate from college and she is scared eh, poopless because she doesn't, I can't say the other word,
Mhm.
because she doesn't know what she's going to do.
Yeah.
And she's going to get the education, but how is she going to apply it? How's she going to make any money? Is she it going to fulfill her and fulfill her dreams? There's a lot of people at that age. Rochelle, are there a lot of people your age that are feeling that?
Yeah, honestly, Kevin, I'm extremely thankful for being here and working with you and meeting all these people because I don't think anyone else really gets to have the opportunity to feel the way I do about work. I always say, well, I love working. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm living in my best version of me. And a lot of times I feel like for us younger people, just having each other around and having that one person who feels that way really makes a big difference. Because I don't let my friends start thinking that way. I'm like, anything is possible. The whole entire world is yours. And if you feel that you want to do something or you don't want to do something, follow your instinct and trust yourself. Don't suppress yourself to what the world tells you we should be doing and what this and that, because everyone else but me, they have kids and they have husbands and they're doing all these things and I'm like, I'm gonna travel the world. And they're like, well, why, so I guess just, yeah, just have to follow your true self, and a lot of people my age don't really even have that thought in their head of like, okay, well, what does that look like?
Mm.
Well, Jay, a lot of people of any age, they don't often well, we don't, I'll put me into the mix. We don't often even know what we're capable of or what we can do or what our passion is. We would, and to live our passion. How do you help people to get through that stuff? And by the way, to get unstuck, which is the name of your podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and Go ahead.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is be able to discern the thoughts that are swirling in your head as to which of them are real and have truth to it, and which of them are just delusion and fear that is coming up from, as you were saying, Rochelle, what society is imposing onto you or the way in which we were raised. So I am a huge advocate for mindfulness as a means to be able to objectively analyze thoughts without judgment, without being hard on yourself. Because once you can then observe all these, because we have so thousands of thoughts a day, most of them are crazy, ridiculous, and not useful. Most of them. But
Right.
we believe them. The problem is that we believe them. And when we believe them, it leads us down this spiral. And then we get to that place of feeling stuck. So the first step for anybody, I always tell them, is let's get you into a practice whereby each day you can get still. You can be able to observe your thoughts. And that alone is a huge step. It's not the end. That's the first step, though, because otherwise we're going to stay in these storms and these cycles of thought pattern that no matter what action I tell you to take, you're going to keep falling into it over and over and over again.
Hmm.
Because some of us are
Yeah.
just stubborn.
Yeah.
All of us are conditioned beings, right? Like even me. And here's the thing. This is what's crazy about this, Kevin. After years of practicing mindfulness, I've gone on retreats. If I go a few days without practicing some stillness, I'm going to go back into my old pattern. I mean, it always happens. I fall back
Yeah.
into it. The same fears, the imposter syndrome, all that stuff comes back. So we have to be able to have intentional effort day in and day out to not fall into those patterns, to be able to interrupt them, because the way it works in our minds and the neural networks we have, think of them like highways, right? You have a highway that you have dug out over the years, and you've driven down this highway over and over again. That's your old thought pattern, the fears, and all the limiting beliefs. Okay. And then over time, you build new thought patterns, new highways. And these are the ones that are more powerful beliefs, purposeful beliefs. You've built those. Okay. You've done the work. It doesn't mean the old highway goes away, it's still
Mm.
there. You can so easily go down it. So you have to be intentional every day to go down the new highway that you're crafting in your mind.
Or you'll go back to the old highway because it's more comfortable.
I love
Yeah.
that you said that. Exactly. It's more comfortable. You're more used to it.
Mhm. Yeah, it is about discipline. I have to say two things to touch on that you just said were absolutely amazing. Um, the first one was believing. So anything you tell yourself, I tell my friends this when they get in actually anybody that's around me in my life. And I do it to myself. I'm not just a preacher about it. If you tell yourself something, you're right. And for a lot of people to realize that, it makes you start thinking about what your subconscious is saying rather than just how you're living and what you're doing and your surroundings. But you start paying attention to, okay, do I have to believe this feeling and this thought right now? Or am I able to just say no, thank you? Let it come through, let it go out. It doesn't, you have full control of yourself at all times. And the second thing I want to touch on that you said was awesome is no matter how you were raised, because there's so many people that I know that, or that you even see in the world, they've been through some of the hardest, most impossible things. And look at what they've done with it. Look at what they became of it. Look what they chose to do rather than to be afraid. It's all in discipline. And I don't know about you, maybe I'm harder than most people in my head, but I struggle with discipline. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that, like
You think?
you this is what I need to do, this is what I should do, but how we're talking about what's comfortable. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Because if you're comfortable, you're not growing. So it's like it all has to do with like where it started in your life doesn't mean that it chooses any sort of outcome because you actually have control of everything each second ahead of time. So thank
Jay,
you for pointing those out.
thank you, Michelle, for saying that. But Jay, why do and I know it's a story that's in our head because of somebody said something to us at one point in time. Maybe it was our mother or our father or a coach or a teacher or another 6-year-old. I walked around for 20 years with what a 6-year-old told me when I was 6.
Mm.
And one day I woke up to myself and I said, he was 6. What the hell did he know? He didn't know anything either. So, but we all do that.
Yeah.
And why is it that we think, and please help me here, why is it that we think that other people are smarter than we are and that we should listen to what they say, but we don't listen to ourselves?
It's just part of the way in which we're wired, Kevin. We are so wired to listen to the people around us and believe them to be true because it's part of what we have leveraged as our survival mechanism, right? If you think about human beings and how we are, we're very tribal, right? And what people tell us, we're our tendency is to want to agree and align and not create confrontation and listen to the group as a means to create our own survival plans. And that's ultimately what it is. The research that came out on how we what is fueling our behavior, it was not that long ago, it was in Scientist Magazine. 90% of all of our actions, all of our habits, and all of our behaviors are from the subconscious mind, which means you're not even conscious of it. You're not even realizing it until you wake up that one day and realize it was the 6-year-old that said that to you when you were the 6-year-old, right? It came into your conscious mind. And that's what created a shift in you, Kevin, right? But for so much time, it was happening at the subconscious level. Why? Because it is our survival mechanism. It's what's driving our behavior to survive. So what I advocate for people to be able to do is let's take inventory of that. Go slow it down. What if you're not able to take this action, if you're holding yourself back from doing something you really want to do, get out a piece of paper and a pen and write, not a piece of paper and a paper, a piece of paper and a pen,
Thank you.
right? And write down, what are the beliefs here that are holding me back? What's limiting me here? Look at it hard. Don't keep repeating it and telling yourself that limiting belief. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's just take inventory of it. But then you have to then craft a new, healthier belief that will serve you. Write that one out. And then, Rochelle, as you were saying earlier, you have to tell yourself that one going forward. You have to keep repeating that one, and you have to add some emotional element to it. That's the only way to wire it into the subconscious. You have to add some emotion to what it is, that new belief that you want to establish. And then over time, through doing that kind of mindset work and through taking actions that prove that belief to be right, your subconscious mind begins to rewire.
So you begin to know that what you're doing now is working versus what you were doing before, and you've got the evidence to prove it.
Yes, evidence, Kevin. You're absolutely right. We need evidence. The subconscious mind will call out. That's if you're saying something, you haven't done a lot to really prove that. There isn't a lot of evidence behind that, so it will call it out to be like, that's phony. But then when you start to take the action, then the subconscious mind has nothing to argue against. It goes, okay, well, you're doing it now. I have the evidence, and so therefore, this is our new belief system. And what's amazing about the human experience is that, and Michelle, you said this before, right? Whatever your childhood conditioning was, you're not stuck with that. Neuroplasticity has proven that the mind is plastic. You can change your neural networks. You can do this yourself. We don't know of any other creatures in existence that can do this, but we know that human beings can. The problem is most people don't leverage that power. They don't pull that lever because they just don't know it's there.
Or they don't believe it's possible.
Yeah, or they don't believe it's possible.
Because I'm not very smart. I didn't do well in school, and I can't do this, and I can't do. I'd love to do this, but I just can't do it. And that answer, that becomes, for some people, sadly, it becomes a life experience, and it can go through their entire life until that one day when they're on their final bed and they're going, "I wish I'd have done this, or I wish I'd have done that, but I didn't have the capability or the intestinal fortitude to be able to do that." And that is so sad. Jay, I'm glad you do what you do, because people need the validation that you can provide, that there's more to life. I'm living proof that that's true. As I've gone through my gyrations and what's gone on, because, and when we come back, I want to talk about this. I need to take a real quick break, but I want to talk about what happens when you have an epiphany and the people around you are saying, "That's not an epiphany. That was a brain aneurysm or something, because you can't do that. Who do you think you are? You need to just stay in your lane and do what you're doing because you make decent money, or people are scared of change, or whatever it is." We need to take a break, and we'll come right back with Jay Abbasi. Go to his website, which is jayabbasi.me. And Rochelle and I and Jay will be right back after this 30-second commercial, so don't go away. It's just real quick, and it's good information to have.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And my friend Rochelle is with us today, and Jay Abbasi is with us. I hope that woke everybody up. I wanted to make sure that everybody was awake for this show, because it is really important to talk about what Jay is now spending his life helping people get through the guck and the crap and the stuff. But I wanted to ask you, why is it that when somebody says, "I'm really passionate about this, and I really, 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 really want to do it," the people that are in his life, the ones that supposedly love him, say, "Oh, now you can't do that. You got a family to raise, and you've got, car payment and stuff. How are you going to make any money? What are you going to do? No, just." And so everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people just shut it down.
Yeah.
Why do people do that to us?
Well, I could tell you that I've had that exact experience, Kevin.
I saw you.
Because I was thinking about 5.5 years ago, I leave Tesla, and I have many different options of what I could do. And so I go on some interviews. CEOs are trying to recruit me to their organization to be their head of sales or their head of training or whatever it is. Nothing feels right. Nothing. I can't say yes to anything. I can't. And none of it feels right to me. And then I make that decision that I'm going to pursue a business of my own where I can speak and coach on the things that really matter to me. And I remember when I told my mother that this is the path that I'm going to go down.
I've done that. Been there.
But yeah. And I remember her face just like it was yesterday, of that she's trying to hold back freaking out. Right. And so she's careful about what word she chooses. Uh, but how are you going to pay for your health insurance? What's going to be, how are you going to make money doing that? Well, maybe you should just take a job now and then start that on the side. Like, she's treating it like it's a nice little hobby of mine that I could just play with. Right. And so fortunately for me, I had done a lot of work on myself to this point. So I knew how to handle it. And here's how I would encourage anybody else to handle it, which is to look at that person and realize that they have positive intent. They do. I knew my mother had positive intent. I know that she cares about me. She cares about my security and my family and all those things. And I also knew that she was projecting her fears about taking a path like that onto me. And that's a choice as to whether I would accept that or whether I don't accept that. I can acknowledge her fear. I can say, "Ma, I understand how you feel about this." It doesn't mean I have to agree with what it is that she's saying. What I could do both. So for me, the approach was maintain compassion for this person, assume positive intent. You know that they're coming from a good place, and recognize where it's really coming from in the end. It's their fears, and don't let other people's fears become your fears.
Especially when you do embark upon that. I have personal experience with this one. You do embark upon doing something that's a little out of the box, and a lot of people would say, "Don't do that." And so you do it, and then you fail.
Mm.
And when you fail, and then people say, "See, I told you. You should have just kept the job." And but and then the bad country music song experience comes, and you have go through some difficult times and stuff. But the passion remained for me. Even though I failed at the initial attempt, I had to keep going. And some people would even say, "Good for you. Don't give up. Only losers give up." What do you say, Jay? If you fail, what happens?
Well, I think the word failure is not really a great word in general, because that's what is success? You can't succeed without having some mistakes. It's impossible. There isn't a single person who's had a lot of success that didn't have, we'll use the word here, perceived failures. There isn't a single person alive that has had success that didn't have perceived failures. So it's part of the path. And so I always encourage people to consider anything that is a perceived failure. Well, what can you learn from this?
It's a
What is there to
lesson.
be? What is the lesson there? And look, you have to always look at it objectively. And that's why I brought up mindfulness before. If the thing that you're doing is just ineffective, it's not solving the problem, it's not moving you forward, then yeah, it seems like you may need to make some changes. But if it's just because you haven't done enough of it yet, there's more work to be done, then that might be the reason why you haven't had the success that you want. But it takes looking at it without letting the emotion, the fear, or the desire cloud your assessment of the situation. In other words, if you were looking at someone else's situation and you were not involved, then how would you look at it? What would you then say? What would you recommend at that point? And that will tell you whether it's something you need to give up or just do something different, or if you need to keep going.
Mm.
The interesting thing about that is sometimes you can be successful and not even know it.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened the last day that I did the radio show in Seattle in 2003. I didn't know if anybody was even listening. And I was having trouble getting advertisers because they said, "How many listeners do you have?" And I said, "I don't know." And so the last day when I announced the show was going off the air, the phone lines filled up with people who were devastated that the show was going off the air. I had no idea who they were. I did not gauge, did not understand the level of the success that the show had attained until it was too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Does that happen to people a lot?
It happens a lot. And you made me think of something, Kevin. I want to ask you a question from what you just shared. So, what was the best part of your experience on this journey? Was the best part you looking at a number and seeing a certain rating or seeing, the performance? Or was the best part the conversations you were having, the speaking passionately about what it is that you cared about? What was the best part for you?
The second one.
The second one, the experience, the journey, right? That's why you had that kind of success, because you were just immersed in doing what you loved. You wouldn't think about you weren't attached to an outcome. You weren't saying, "Oh, I'm only going to be happy or I'm only going to feel successful when I get this number or I hit this rating level." And then that came as a byproduct. So yeah, I find that to be happening all the time for people when they let go of the outcome. They detach from it having to have a certain result, and they just immerse themselves in the journey and just being present with what it is they're doing. And then they look up and they go, "Oh my God, this is wildly successful."
Well, and I have to tell you, on that last day, and the reason that I do this today, and they're both passed, I'm sure, long ago, but a lady called when the phone lines were filled up, and she said, "Hi, this is Carol from Bainbridge Island, and I just want you to know that we're devastated." And there were people in the studio that were crying. I had assistants that were crying. The board operator was on. It really was a moment in time. And she said, "We're devastated." And I said, "Well, devastated is a strong word. It's just a radio show." And she said, "No, you don't understand. I'm an Alzheimer's caregiver, and she and I sit here and listen to your show every day because you can still reach her."
Mm.
And that taught me that regardless of what you think is success, to me, that was the success that I was hoping for.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's what all of this is about. I mean, whenever anybody comes to me and they're feeling so stuck, I don't have purpose, I don't know, what they're caught is in just thinking about what it is that they want for themselves, things that I want for me, 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 me. And what you just described was the impact you had on another person. That was the success, the
Yes.
meaningful impact you have on others. And so to get out of those places, of those ruts that we fall into, we have to get our attention off of just us and what we get and onto the environment that we're in and the people of whom we serve.
And isn't service to others the primary reason that we're here?
Absolutely. I use the analogy of the sun all the time. The sun doesn't shine on us because it's getting something in return. The sun isn't getting anything for providing us with light and warmth. The sun's just doing what the sun does. That's its role in the universe. It is to keep our planet lit up and warm. And the sun doesn't ask for anything. It just does what it does. And each of us are like our own little suns, but we have a unique contribution that we can give to the world. We just have to slow ourselves down, get a little quiet, get still, and be able to uncover what's already there, because each person listening has a unique talent, one way in which you can serve the world that nobody else can. You just need to uncover what that is. And then you have to get over your own fears and your own stuff and your own limiting beliefs and go out there and make that kind of impact on the world.
Purcell, would you write down the time It's 29:52 because I want our assistant to be able to go back and pull that clip because I want to make a Instagram post out of it because that is a powerful thing that you just said.
Oh,
Very,
thank you.
very.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. By the way, we're talking with Jay Abbasi, and I said that right, haven't I?
You nailed it. First time. Very impressive.
You you have no idea how rare that is.
For me too, because most people are butchering my last name, but you got it right. Sounds smooth when you say it. So
Very good. You have no idea how rare that. No, I'm kidding. We need to take we need to have a station break real quick and go to Jay's website, which is jayabbasi.me. And he's got resources there. He's got you can access his podcast. And I love the way that you do the podcast because what you do is you tell a story of somebody and a problem that they're having, and then you bring in the appropriate expert to help deal with that story so that they can get through that to live the life that I believe the universe really wants for them to live. And so I love the work that you're doing in many phases. You're going to have to come back. I'm afraid that's just the way it goes. So
thank you.
we need to take this real quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't do that because I confuse people whenever I do that. Jay Abbasi is with us. But by the way, Rochelle, what do you think? Are you learning something?
Yeah, and I've got 100 million things going through my head. We both don't know when to stop talking in our heads, and I guess everybody kind of does that. But Jay, thank you just so much for being here and being able to spread that message. It's almost like you're kind of giving me something to listen to and your perspective of things to think about for myself. And I want to be one of those people. I want to be able to just. I've always thought about going to high school, gathering a bunch of kids, and just preaching to them, you know,
Yeah.
because we don't learn what we really need for our life in school a lot of times. And like Kevin said, you know, you get out of school, you're like, okay, I just did all that, but now what? And it takes so long, and then you're in debt and you're scared. But I did have a question on what your perspective was when people tell you. One thing I've heard from my mom a lot when I have my ideas now, she just says, "Oh, okay, like it's nothing. Like I'm gonna start this business. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go here." She's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, you know," and then I finally do it, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" What is your perspective on being realistic when you hear people tell you, "Well, I have to be realistic."
You mean when somebody else says that to you, Rochelle? Like you have to be
Yeah,
realistic? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I would say that their perception of what's realistic is just their own perspective. And
right,
uh, there is no such thing as one objective realism, right? In other words, like there is not just
right,
one way of looking at the world. That's what's so amazing about how we interact with people, and they show us a completely different way of thinking that we never would have encountered had we not met that person. So I like to kind of imagine it's like imagine that everyone's like in their own little planet. Think of like, the solar system, right? There's all these little planets, and they have their own little environments and their own little atmospheres, if you will, right? And so your mother she has her own little planet that she's on, and that's okay.
Mhm.
That's her planet.
Yeah,
you
I do.
know, and she operates a certain way. That's totally okay,
Mhm.
right? It's just it's not factual. There is no such thing as a factual, realistic expectation. There isn't one. What you have to really just look at, assess it is, well, if I want to get to that destination and I'm here, what are the actual steps I need to take? And then the question is, if I don't know what steps I need to take, who can I go to find out what are those steps? Because in all scenarios, if you have an idea, usually, in most cases, it isn't an absolutely original idea. It's you want to put your own twist to something someone else did, right? Well, find out what someone did to get there, and guess what? You just have to walk the path at that point.
Mm. That's awesome. Thank you. That perspective is grand because I think a lot of people are scared to ask for help when really like that's where your foundation can start is just by asking somebody for some help. It makes you powerful to be able to be vulnerable like that.
Yeah,
And
if I'm oh, I was gonna say, if I'm in New Jersey and I want to get to California and I hop in a car and I don't have any map, I don't have any internet, I don't know how to get there. The right thing to do would be to ask somebody, how do I get there? Right? Like I'm not gonna just try to figure out how to get there. I would just be like, oh, let me call someone who's been there and say, what roads, highways do I need to take? Write it down, and then I'm gonna go. It's that simple. Simplify
yeah,
it.
but you're a guy. We don't ask for directions. So, but
I'll ask for
but
directions. I've had to humble myself and ask for directions. Yeah.
it actually is a lot smarter. Most of us are. Never mind. I'm not going to go down that road. But I did want to mention this, and that is, why is it that somebody can have an extraordinary talent and they can do something that very few people on the planet can do? They've got trophies all over their house, at their home, because they are an accomplished figure skater. Now that's not something that a lot of people can do, Rochelle. But Rochelle did that, and she has all
Wow.
kinds of trophies and stuff. She actually sent us a little film of her doing a tight spiral thing. It's just incredible.
Scratch spin. It's the
Is that what
simplest
that's
spin you
called?
can learn, but he thinks it's amazing.
So so when somebody attains that kind of success in one field, why don't they think that that will work for them in other aspects of their lives?
Hmm. It's because an association must have been made that that is just one category, it's just one thing, and if it's that, I can do it, but if it's something else, it sounds like it's way out of my comfort zone of what I know. So it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of the uncertainty behind it. So, when someone has achieved success in one thing that they've really spent a lot of time and energy on, it has become something that they feel is a known, right? I know what I need to do to have success doing X, in this case, figure skating. But anything else, it feels like it's an unknown. So it becomes a fear. It's an unknown. It's an unknown path. I don't know how to do that, right? But really, the truth behind that is everything's unknown. Everything is unknown. There is no knowns in our world. So what we really have to be honest with ourselves about, it's not about fear of the unknown. It's fear of losing what is known. It's fear of losing a sense of comfort or security. So I feel comfortable and secure doing X, but doing Y, I don't feel the same comfort and security doing it. So what we have to train ourselves to do is to gradually, one step at a time, do the thing that scares us, but don't set yourself up to have to do that all in one huge leap. No one climbs a mountain in one step. All you have to trace out is, what are the steps I need to take in this other path, and just say, today I'm just going to take step one and I'm going to be happy with step one. I'm going to acknowledge the progress of step one, and then tomorrow I will take step two, and then I continue on.
That's brilliant advice. I wish I wish you were around. I had a childhood friend, and we lost touch for like 30 years. And then he came back into my life, and surprisingly enough, on either a Friday or a Saturday night, later in the evening, after, I don't know, probably half a bottle of Bacardi rum. And then we would start talking about about his life and what was going on, and I knew his wife and stuff. And he hated his job. Every time I talk to him, I hate my job. I'm a customer service. I just hate it. Can't stand it. I said, well, quit. What? I can't quit. Are you crazy? I got to stay here and hate my job. And finally, I got to the point where, because I'm a lousy coach, I said, look, I love talking to you, but if you're going to keep talking about this and you're not going to make any meaningful change in your life, then don't call me until you do.
Mm.
That he's never called me since, Jay.
Well, Kevin, there's a chance that this person is addicted to the complaining and addicted to the negativity so much that they're unaware that it is actually something they enjoy doing. Like, they enjoy the complaining, they enjoy the negativity, like they enjoy like letting it out. There are a lot of people like this, and I would always want to do my best, of course, and you encourage the person, you want them to think differently, but if they're really set on this, then the appropriate thing may be to just say to yourself, hey, this is a kind of energy that I may not want to surround myself with all the time, because it doesn't seem like I'm on the same wavelength of this person anymore. And that's where we have to make some tough decisions with people in our lives, because I've had people like that too, Kevin, who are just, every time, I'm thinking of somebody specifically, I won't say his name, but there's a person I thought I worked for years ago, and he was a very fun person, a very likable person. And then when he left the company and we got together and had a lunch, it was just 30 minutes of complaints and whining and all the things that people did to him and how he's the victim of all of this. And I left that lunch saying, I will not spend another moment with this person. I just cannot do it.
It's they're vibrating in my world. They're vibrating at a much lower level, and so if you are around those kinds of people, they can tend to bring you down. And I know people have experienced this, where they will go have a meeting with somebody or talk to somebody, and they leave it feeling down and depressed because they're losing that person is sucking their energy right out of them. And so you're right. It's important to only work with people who are uplifting and who feel like they're uplifting to you. Is that fair?
It's fair. It's tough with family and close, relatives. That's where it becomes a challenge. And so you just need to safeguard against these things. Put the guardrails up in some ways, because we have something in our brains called mirror neurons. So mirror neurons we are mirroring people at a subconscious level. So the three of us here having this conversation, we're in some ways mirroring one another, which is why we feel a positive energy. We feel uplifted chatting with one another, because we're talking about things from a very meaningful, purposeful light. But the same thing goes when somebody is just hitting you with that negative energy. You don't even have the control at that point of taking in the negativity. You have to. Just like right now, we're all breathing in the air around us, right? We can't tell ourselves not to breathe in the air around us. We have to. So you want to be careful the amount of the duration and the frequency of being around those people. If you can just limit the frequency and the duration, then you're going to be better off. You don't necessarily have to remove them from your life, and you don't have to necessarily hold resentment towards them. You just have to figure out, hey, when I have this much time that I want to spend with people, how much time do I want to spend with that person, and be able to then create the right plan for yourself to surround yourself with people with positive energy.
What I'm learning, or have learned over the course of time, is that those people tend to eliminate themselves.
Yeah.
Because they'll turn around and say, I don't know what it is with that guy. He's always smiling and he's always happy, and that just doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah.
even your children, it's like, Dad, would you just shut up? I get that all the time.
Yeah, I found that that's happened naturally as well. I haven't had to have too many confrontational conversations with people and say like, "Hey, I can't have you in my life anymore." It just was a very natural thing. And as I'm getting older, I have less friends than I did 10 years ago, and these are the people that the relationships I have just gone deeper and deeper with them, and we're on similar wavelengths.
And people like, I know you're a good friend of Corey Porter,
Yeah,
and awesome dude.
yeah.
And there are the cool thing is, and this is what is fun about having Rochelle on the show, is she is getting to meet people like you. And I think she met Corey and other folks. She's finding out that there are some really, really cool people in the world, and she just needs to go find them. Is that fair, Rochelle?
Yeah, it's very fair, Kevin, because it's opened my eyes to see not only what others are capable of doing and what they're being, but knowing that I can be one of those people, you know? When I, an hour before we did this, I will admit that I was dancing around my room for like an hour. I had my music blasting. There was nobody in the house. You know, I was like, what else am I going to do? And how am I going to choose my energy to be around me today? And a big question that came to my mind when you said specifically that they're a victim to everything. And um, I hate to say it, but I've had most people around me in my life in that kind of state. And I'm blessed for it because it taught me that's not how I want to be and how I want the place I want to come thinking from. But do you ever have people that come to you for help and they want more, but they're stuck in a victim mentality? And how do you help them flip that to see the positive side of that inside of them?
Hmm. So when I begin the process of seeing if I can help someone, I spend over an hour talking with them, and this is for free, no cost, to be able to really get a sense of if can I help you? Because I don't want to start working with someone, Rochelle, if I don't think I can really help them, then I'm not serving them or myself in my own business, right? I need to gather, are they open minded? Are they coachable? Is this someone who I think will really put into action the things that we are discussing here? So, assuming that a person has passed that threshold, well, let me first take a step. If they don't pass that threshold, and I've had to have many of these conversations, I say, hey, listen, this was a wonderful conversation. I don't think this is the right fit for you right now in working with me. Here are some tools, and to keep in touch, and we can talk again down the road. Because I'm not going to spend my time with someone who's going to be in a state of resistance and using the victim card all the time. Now,
Mhm.
assuming they have passed that threshold, they're qualified. It just happened actually. What day is today? Today, I think it was last week. Yeah, it was before Thanksgiving. I had a person of whom I met, and we started working together, and we're working through something. And the way I normally do it, I broach the subject in a very sensitive way. I say, based off of what I'm hearing, there's a word that I want to surface that I think you're not going to like, but I'm going to bring it up to you, and we're going to talk about it. Okay? And then the person goes, okay, fine. And I say the word is victim, and I just pause, and I just let that sink in, because they're starting to connect the dots. Everything they've been saying has been presented them as the victim of the circumstance, and then I encourage them that this is something you need to be very mindful of going forward. And that's the main focus for them following that conversation. How often are you playing the victim in your circumstance? How often, if we're watching a scene of a movie and you're in there, are you saying, oh, that's the victim in this scene? And if you keep doing that, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay in this place. You're not going to be able to get the most out of your life because you're always playing the role of victim. So it becomes something that I call out directly. People don't always like me for it because it's not a popularity contest for me. It's about helping people to get results. And they have to sit through that discomfort and admit and acknowledge I've been playing the victim and I'm not going to do it anymore.
It's
But
powerful.
I want everybody to like me. I couldn't do your job.
It's not always fun because I tell people all the time, I am a recovering people pleaser. I love to please people. I want people to like me. I want to be the guy who's liked in the room. But in the end, if my job is to get people results and to make transformative change in their life, I have to let go of my need to be liked and focus more on how can I help this person to get to the other side.
I got a question for you, sir. On as far as I want to talk a little bit about 4-letter words, like like the F word. No, not that one. Fear. Or the H word. Oh, not that one either. It's hate, or want, or need. Do you help teach and work with people to stop using words that do not meet the objective of where they're trying to go?
Yeah. There's a lot of conversations I have when I tell my clients there's a buzzword that I just heard you say. And a buzzword is can't is a buzzword.
Yep.
Or even I can. That's still not strong enough for me. If you want to do something, I can do that. I can do that. Okay. Will you do that? So that's about discipline. We talked about that before, right? Yeah, need is a strong word too. Need is a very, very heavy word. And whenever the word need comes up, it's suggesting attachment. I need it to go a certain way. I need it to be this way. And if we're in a state of attachment to an outcome and needs to go a certain way, we're setting ourselves up for unnecessary suffering, because it suggests that we're trying to control something that's outside of our control. If you need it to go a certain way and the world doesn't operate according to your needs, right, then you are setting yourself up for failure. You need to have a healthier expectation of what it is that could happen. And so another word that comes up a lot is try. When I hear that word try, I call that one out. I don't like that word. I don't like the word probably. Yeah, I could probably do that.
Potentially, I might be able to pull.
Maybe I could do that. Yeah. It's just these are, and words matter. It matters. Rochelle, you said it before, right? What we're saying to ourselves. What we say to ourselves matter. What we say to ourselves in our own inner dialogue, and then what we're saying out loud to people. And if I say words like, I could probably do that, or maybe I can, or yeah, I'm not sure, or I think I could do that, all those words don't have conviction. So we need to shift our vocabulary into words that have conviction. I am doing that. I will do that. This is already happening. I'm already in the progress of. Those are the ways in which I want people to speak when they want to move towards something that's, or through a fear, and get to a different, more positive result.
I think that's awesome. One of the stories that I use is called the 50,000-foot view story, which, if I can explain it just real quick, the 50,000-foot view we don't get access to. So it's like being 50,000 feet into the air and looking down at our poor little body in the forest. And we're walking in the forest, and we get to see the tree ahead of us and the tree behind us. There's a view from 50,000 feet that takes us to where we're going, and it can show us how it's going to happen, but we don't get to have that view. We get to walk one step at a time. So as long as we continue to walk one step at a time and be aware and listen to the outcomes that step is bringing us, and then make the minor corrections that we need to make to continue walking towards our goal, we will reach our goal without knowing how we even got there. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And it reminds me of how I will encourage people to have healthy expectations. So if I were to ask both of you to think, okay, if I were to tell you within the next 30 seconds, someone was going to pop into your room and scream as loud as they could, right? Out of nowhere, okay? You would then brace yourselves for the fact that someone is about to come into that room and scare you. And when it happened, you wouldn't have such a poor reaction. But if I didn't tell you that, and then somebody came in and screamed, whoa, well, what's going on? So the reason I'm sharing that analogy with you is because we have to brace ourselves for the unexpected. We have to be very mindful of the fact that things are not always going to go our way. We can only see that next step, right, Kevin? So we don't know what's beyond that. And so there's a process of what is Stoicism is called negative visualization, where we're not necessarily thinking that things are going to be awful and we should oh, the world's going to crash and everything's going to burn. It's more of, I am preparing myself mentally and emotionally for whatever is going to come. I know that if I'm going to take this new path, it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. And I prepare myself for that versus I need it to go exactly this way. And this is the way it has to be. Otherwise, I'm going to give up.
And by the way, quitting is not acceptable.
Yeah. You only fail when you quit, is what I always tell people.
Yeah.
If you, like you said earlier, Jay, I love everything about the quote I heard a few years ago. You said it, I think, on Spa is you only, not you only fail when you learn. We just said that. What did you say? It completely left my brain. But
That's all right. It's wandering
um,
around up there somewhere. It'll come back.
yeah, well, I keep having this thought come in my head because it's right next to me. But 3 weeks after starting with Kevin, he told me to write this down and I put it on my mirror. It has been there for almost a year now. It says, no need, only choice. Because when I first started working with him, he would ask me questions and it was like, well, need this and this person needs that. And I put those expectations on myself. And then I realized that there was no want or need. There was a choice of how you said, like will and you get in that higher perspective. Whatever you're telling yourself is what you're putting out there. So I understand that I am successful and I am whatever it is that you want to be. It puts you in a different mindset that almost makes you not want to go backwards because you realize how weak your thinking was.
Yeah.
And I bet you get these moments all the time with people where they get to a point where it just like the veil kind of opens up and they're like, everything makes sense now. And it really isn't so complicated. Do you get a lot of moments like that with people that you get to share with them?
Yeah, it's those moments, the way you described it as how people realize the simplicity and how they've been overcomplicating something as simple as just taking the next step and then the next step after that. It's when you brought up quotes and I thought of a quote that was very related to what you just said. It's the Frankl quote from Man's Search for Meaning. It is between stimulus and response is a space. In our space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so
That's
what you
amazing.
just described there is the space. Once people create that space, then they can look at, oh, wait, I've been making up this story about this. I've been overthinking all of it. And then when they have the space, they are then in that power of choice. How I choose to respond to this is what ultimately matters, not the stimuli out there. It's my choice. And that is an incredible source of power for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell you that him telling me that after those 3 weeks, it changed my life because my subconscious sees that every single day, multiple
Yeah.
times a day. For anybody listening, I highly encourage you to put things around you that you want to become of or that you want to start changing your subconscious to be aligned to. It happens almost instantly, and by the time you realize it, you're already in that state of mind. You don't have to like consciously think and remind yourself because it's what's around you, right? You create your atmosphere and your energy.
Yeah.
My mom tells me sometimes, she said, "Were you just like, are you gonna go out? Are you gonna do things?" I said, no, I like my space. I love being with me because I get to decide how it is. And I love that you're teaching people that, Jay. It is so powerful. It makes me want to be like you. Go out and really show people what's possible. And no matter who you are, what your beliefs or why, it's all there. You just have to have the courage to do it, not be afraid.
And so, Jay, if they go to jabbasi .me, they can get all the information about you. Is that correct, sir?
Absolutely. The podcast, we have also some resources on there. You mentioned we have some stuff, some blueprints and the quiz that's on there to assess if you're in that state of burnout, and there's some warning signs that you need to be aware of. And then also ways to connect with me over LinkedIn, and that's the platform that I'm on the most for sure.
Will you come back and talk to us again? Because I do want to do a show about specifically burnout.
Absolutely. This was so much fun. I would love to do this again, Kevin. So count me in.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And I want to thank you for being here, Michelle. You've added a lot to it, and keep writing on your mirror. It's important. And and Jay, thank you so much. I really have enjoyed our time together. And again, go to Jay Abbasi. That is ABBA. Yeah, ABBASI.me. And can't think of a better guy to work with. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's kevin@kmmedia.pro. Thanks for listening to this episode.